And what had happened to that part of the building, that extra weight, it crushed the floor joists on the thing, and was cracking the ceiling, below. And the buildings are designed for certain design loads. I think typically for residential construction, it's something like 40 pounds per square foot of live load. And here she was putting, I don't know, 5 or 6 times the weight on the floor. So they had to go in and rebuild the floor system on that apartment. So I think go easy on adding thermal mass to but people have done things like water beds, and water bed is about 10 inches of water. But again, it's not the whole floor. It's just a concentrated load. But water beds are not very popular. Why? Because they leak over time, and I know that from personal experience. And so, that is not. There have been some work going on with. There are some materials like sodium sulfate that will actually go from a solid to a liquid. It's sort of like wax. If it's heated up, it'll go to a liquid, and then. But they really haven't found a commercial product now that will allow you to store heat at roughly room temperature, and so we don't have a product like that. But imagine if you could get a super thing that would store latent heat like that. You could heat this stuff up in the summertime, and then it would just slowly, as it solidified, it would release heat into the space. But we're a long, long way from that. But I remember people used to do things like put big barrels of water in their basements in the old days. And when water freezes, it releases heat into the space. And that was a way of getting some more stable temperatures in the basements. And that's in the day when they didn't use very much insulation at all. So, the product, the technology is not static. We've got much better windows now, and our ideas are evolving that way.
So when you're talking about mass, okay, and you're talking about, like, this house will eventually be on a walkout basement. So does the mass include what you have in your basement too?
It can if you insulate on the outside of the basement walls. If you the standard way most people do it, though, is there's a concrete wall, and then they build a wall on the inside to insulate it. And if you do that, then the thermal mass is not really useful to you. If you remember that house in Santa Fe, there they actually had the adobe on the inside and then the insulation on the outside of it. And that's a way. But generally, it's more expensive to insulate on the outside of a concrete basement than on the inside. Plus, usually people want to finish it on the inside as well. So, but you're right. Strictly speaking, if you insulated it on the outside, it would be better. And as well, you have to have some way of getting the heat down into the basement. The heat will not flow by down into the basement of its own. You'll have to have a furnace fan running or something to get that.
Well, in the models of your home, when they were doing it, you mentioned a sweet spot.
Yeah.
As
how much mass
the
and
perfect
so on.
the perfect window. What would that be?
Well, I think if you're building new, something that Mill Creek house in Edmonton is probably close to that sweet spot. Put a couple of 2.5 inches of concrete topping on the floors. Stuff the gypsum board into the, and then you go up to maybe a 10% ratio of south window to floor area. And a lot of the early books about passive solar, like 30 years ago, they were talking about using exterior insulation on the windows. And unfortunately, we don't really have a good system now of a commercial product for exterior insulation. The only product that I'm aware of are these roll-down shutters that you can buy. And there's a company in Alberta that has them. They're not cheap. They're almost as expensive as a window, but they give you an extra R2 insulating value. And I know one of the net zero homes in Alberta used them in Red Deer, I think they had them. And there they found the advantage was in the summertime they could actually roll them right down, and then the solar gain in the summertime and fall and so they didn't overheat. And if you've traveled in Europe, you know they really like shutters on windows there. I was watching a movie about Venice last night, and I was just noticing there, virtually every window has an external shutter on them, and they use them for noise control and also solar control there. And as well, those roll-down shutters I think are a lot more available. I've seen them in Germany, and I think here they're not produced in large quantities, so you pay a real premium for them.
I saw a company that was installing the shutters on a gas station, store. And I ran over to it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And he said that they are importing the mechanical parts from Germany.
Are they? Yeah.
So yeah,
okay, yeah.
They're not cheap.
Yeah. I think is it Pekka-Roll is the name of that company in Alberta. I don't know if they manufacture them, but they're a wholesaler.
I think they're bringing them in from Germany.
Are they as well? Yeah.
But they're very, just to do, we've got, despite what Dr. Dumont wanted to do, that side of the house is facing the river where it's going to end up. So we had to have windows on the west side, but now we're dealing with how we're going to cover them. And those bloody shutters are crazy. So.
Yeah, they're a real specialty. I mean, have you ever seen a cheap BMW or Mercedes-Benz? No. And so there's that. But we did have, there's a house out in Riverside Estates, south of the city here. And the fellow actually, he did all the right things there. And what he did, he actually got a barn door, a sliding barn door type of mechanism that covers the south windows, and he actually got it on an electric motor, and it slides back and forth from inside the house, and we were getting these windows here are roughly R6 or so. Well, you could make an insulating shutter would be maybe R10 or something like that, and that would really improve the performance. But again, it's a moving part, and you've got to something else to keep track of. And oops. So I think window technology is likely to improve, and so on. They're working on things like vacuum windows and nanogel windows, and I think we'll see more of more innovation as time goes by. But we've come a long way in this. One of the real big problems we have is that we're still not laying out our subdivisions so that people have opportunity, and to try to find a lot is a real challenge. The Factor 9 house in Regina, it was a typical spaghetti layout of streets, and it was quite a challenge to find a house where they could face the south. I think, Ron, I live, the house that we bought, or we live in on Main Street, it was laid out, runs east-west, so the back of the house faces south. And it's funny, not too far from there, I believe you're going to be building another house on, is it 12th or 10th Street?
Yes.
Yeah. And again, it's on that east-west grid of...
with a nice east access as well. It's in that southeast corner.
Southeast corner. And now I do believe that Evergreen subdivision in the northeast part of the city, they've tried to incorporate more, but I think certain, when the Greeks were occupying Turkey 2,500 years ago, they built some new cities there, and they laid out all the streets